It is not my fault that Martin Amidu decided to label the president as the mother serpent of corruption. It's not my fault. It's not my fault that Erastus Donko, who investigated Galamsey, and the president's name was mentioned. In fact, the vice president was accused for taking appearance fee, had to run for his life and run into hiding. It's not my fault that Manasseh Azure had to run to Austria after exposing your government of corruption in this country. Then you sit here to say in 2007, when you were in the NDC, I was a baby. Yes, I agree you were in the NDC. You were a serial caller, I remember at the time.
I had never been a serial caller. I had never been a serial caller. I had never.
If in 2015, if in 2015 or 2016, you were as grown as you claim you are today and being Nebuchadnezzar, you would have learned the principle of politics, that you don't get moved into another party all because of a bag of rice and a bag of sugar. You would have stayed in the NDC and you wouldn't have kotowed to what was done to you in Asawase. So please,
you have
us
focus. No, wait. When you were speaking, he was quiet.
So I was quiet. So on the pin, so you see,
when he was talking, when you were talking, he started interjecting.
And I'm telling you that if you are Nebuchadnezzar, you wouldn't have fallen for a bag of rice and a bag of sugar.
You called him a small boy. He kept quiet.
Now I'm saying you are a grown up, but you took a bag of rice and a bag of sugar to join another party. You would have been principled. A small boy of my nature wouldn't have fallen for that. I sit here and I feel the plight of many people who cannot even afford 3 square meals a day. Today, I sit here and I feel sad for someone this morning whose salary is already consumed even before the next payday, or because of high cost of living, or because he's got to pay transport fares, or because his rent. And he thinks that hopefully by next year, as a result of the incompetence of this government, cluelessness, insensitivity, and the huge tax burden that have been brought on the people of this country, by next year, that person is going to be paying a 5% VAT rate on transport fares, a 5% VAT rate on taxes, another tax on, fruit juices, a tax on virtually everything
Malik,
the person is going to utilize.
Malik.
So this morning, I can only thank God for my life and pray that God sees every Ghanaian youth in this country through at least to December 7th, 2024.
Where you change things.
Where we would award and issue every Ghanaian youth a certificate of survival.
A certificate of survival?
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, for 4 years under these unbearable hardships, every Ghanaian deserves at least a certificate of how he or she survived under this economy.
I see.
Now we'll get one.
I see.
When the office of the special prosecutor was formed, some of us made it clear that the man who created the office himself was an entire entity submerged in deep corruption. He was a man who had no focus in fighting the menace of corruption, and was a man who, if he allows himself for 1 minute, will stand trial for corruption. People didn't believe us. When Martin Amidu appeared before the committee, he said he will hold corruption by the horn. To Mr. Martin Amidu, corruption was a cow. Little did he know that it was a deadly, poisonous snake that he would not see unless he assumes office as a special prosecutor. Months after, what happened? The man resigned. One afternoon, we woke up and Mr. Martin Amidu was choked with corruption. He had to run for his life. And when he was asked what was pursuing him, he said it was the mother serpent of corruption. And that was Mr. Akufo-Addo. He ran. Why? The president took a pen and paper, a contract of Ameri that was signed under the NDC. In an attempt to get cuts from it, 510 million was ballooned to 1.3 billion. When Mr. Akufo-Addo was questioned on it, he came and told us he wasn't thinking right. When you attempted duping the state and you were exposed. Mr. Martin Amidu said it was choking. Why? The president, on repeated basis, Nyantechi, told us that Mr. Akufo-Addo, when you enter his office and give him bundles, he will shake the head down 3 million. All contracts will be yours. To the extent that Nyantechi said he has caught Mr. Akufo-Addo and is in his pocket because of corruption. Mr. Martin Amidu said it was stinking, so he couldn't survive under this economy. Alistair Matthias, a gold mafia, said, all these Akufo-Addo is my best friend. I mean, a man who does corruption in Africa. Every corrupt expose in this country has fingered the man who appointed the office of the special prosecutor.
Why would he appoint the special prosecutor?
Mr. Akufo-Addo,
if he has no intention of fighting corruption? I asked Bernard the same question.
Because this same man told us he would adopt the ANAS principle. Go and ask him to answer that question first before we come to OSP. It was a campaign promise. So he ought to have done it. But he did it with no intention of prosecuting. And let me do a little education to Awal. He said there's a 6-unit team, IGP, intelligence. He mentioned somebody chairing the board, on the board. And that gives them independence. He hasn't read this act. Let me tell you where their independence ends. It ends at section 4, clause 2. The office shall, for the purposes of this act, be authorized by the Attorney General to initiate and conduct prosecution of corruption and corruption-related matters. Finito.
And
which means that the OSP appointed by Mr. Akufo-Addo has to seek clearance from another minister of Mr. Akufo-Addo before he prosecutes his own colleagues, ministers, and even the man who appointed both of them, Mr. Akufo-Addo. Why is it that when 10,000 bags of salad rice got missing at the port, where Alhaji Bawumia was fingered, and they said they shared it as Ramadan rice, 10,000 seized from a businessman, why didn't they investigate that? Why is it that when appearance fee matter, when they said Alhaji Bawumia, and I've repeatedly said that, as for Galamsey, we those from the north don't know how to collect kickbacks. Where did Alhaji Bawumia learn that? 250,000 before you sit by him. When that matter was put before him, the Charles Edubuahin matter, the OSP told us, in fact, he was pleading for us to pass the Corruption Practices Act. He says in his law, this is the first one, this is the regulation. He says in these two things, corruption hasn't been defined. So he doesn't know what he's investigating. It is here, and I can read it for you. The OSP further pleads that the president passes the Corrupt Practices Act to support in his investigations. So all these acts were brought into force. It doesn't define corruption. That is why when Alhaji Bawumia was fingered in 250,000 corrupt bribery scandal to sit by him, the OSP couldn't investigate. He was crying. Look, now the country has been choked.
You're saying
different corrupt deals. When PDS came, and let me explain it to you, the vice president changed an insurance, a bank guarantee that was supposed to be used in the PDS debacle to an insurance guarantee. And allowed the company to present a fraudulent one to the state. They duped the state, I beg your pardon, over 500 million. Till date, 500 million of your money is seated at PDS's account. They have refused to pay for it, all in the doing of this Alhaji Bawumia. And yet the OSP cannot investigate because in his act, he doesn't even understand what corruption is. He's pleading on them to bring up a Corruption Practices Act. So, you see, this entire OSP debacle, we have said it. And Martin Amidu, who was the first man, came to tell us that the one who appointed him, of all corruption snakes, he is the mother. He gave birth to them. For the first time, we saw a president was collecting bundles, licking his hands with saliva and collecting. We have seen these things in this country. And when the second one came, Kisei Jabin, 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, Kisei Jabin granted a press conference. You watched it. You watched how he nearly wept. He says he's Kwankwanoma. Or is it Ankwanoma?
Ankwanoma.
You saw the Nokra Abwa for you. He says his life is gone. So as for him, he has choked to the extent that his life, his soul doesn't live in him again. The corruption under this government, every day in a ministry is corruption. Every day in an agency is corruption. Ghanaians themselves have passed a corrupt verdict on this government. They said they had employed 100,000 people under NAPCO. What happened to the policy? They said they employed 20,000 people under agric extension work. What happened to the policy? They said they had brought back the allowances for teacher trainee and nursing trainee. What happened to those allowances? In fact, national service people, recently, they just told us they had paid them, people who have ended service. They are now going to pay them from January to May. So if such people come again to tell you they are creating 20,000, when they have finished employing their own family and friends in judicious positions. Look, for the first time, the president appointed his own daughter on the Creative Arts Board, public service. The former senior minister appointed his 2 sons. In fact, Alhaji Bawumia appointed the wife's father as ambassador, the wife's brother, Abu Ramadan, as NADMO boss, their own sister, Larba, as NDA boss.
What are your thoughts on the business and employment assistance program? That's what I'm asking you about.
The juicy positions in government were given to their family and friends, and they come and tell you and I that 20,000 or whatever, what was the number, is going to solve unemployment. Let me teach them proper jobs that were created under us. Terminal 3 was built. people were employed.
How many?
Over 1,000, 2,000 people were employed in Terminal 3. Working today. Cleaners, drivers, security, whatever. They are still working today. Rage Hospital was expanded. New people were recruited. We have cleaners, watchmen, nurses. It is still working today.
Do you think that the business and employment
can you control this? Your panelists is jittery.
I'm not happy with our boss today.
Why are you behaving like a witch surrounded the Holy Ghost fire?
Have you counted the people at Terminal 3? I haven't counted the number of people at Terminal 3.
What kind of jittery, low-level behavior is this? I mean, you sit and you're acting like a witch surrounded by Holy Ghost fire. Listen, I've been telling you, you don't learn. That's why
these are rehashes of what you
we
have
created. We created jobs. We created the Ghana Gas. Did the Ghana Gas recruit people or not?
Malik,
yes.
The Business and Employment Assistance Program.
It's a good thing. So
do you think it's a step in the right direction?
I have told you that. The people who are speaking about business and employment program are people who promised us jobs in the past. Now I'm telling you them how to create jobs. Aside all these things President Mahama brought, he has promised to bring a 24-hour economy. Those are the jobs the Ghanaian people are waiting for. And not this, they've created business. They don't even understand their own policy they have created. When you asked him, he was fumbling his own policy.
Time is up.
And you allowed him to interject too much. This attitude,
thank you, Awa.
this jittery attitude should stop.
Yama Owi Akwa Baba, Mansai Media College. Mansai Media College is a school, power, a chat TV so, any radio so, Jumedie. Yasuye ewo Kumasi atonsu baby a uwo bia opese oba Mansai Media College na be hu dwumadia yedi ne honmo a yentie dwumadia yedi no Mansai Media College
se usua bribi wo media mu ana opese ohunu bribi biara efa media ho ensu eche kra
Mansai Media College ewo homa
ye wa achechefo a wa kwadiri yie wa adetwemu na in studio ni ye newsroom de editwam wonsam twemu no ye twe bribi ti se kasebo akenkan ni sinicha ni bebura ekeka ho wa multimedia mu nso ya twe bribi ti se sini mfoni asiesie mfoni nitwa ni bebura ekeka ho ye betumi nso aboa ama wo de na otwepe asunya bribi wo nkitahudie adwuma ahodo nyinaamu esanse ye wo yankasa foni nti abwe biara yama ya adesuafo kwan ma okọ yode ya tire won adesua dan mu no
ahwefo ehu ekame ese obi biara wo le bosomtwe ase enim abakosema efa nsuo ihu menya abofra ketewa bi wa ha ono so onim abakosema efa le bosomtwe ho
abusuafo ya mama kwaba eba Ghana Pages TV so emra so se the trending issues ne ekoso ewo abefo tentan fidie ni so ebesomo Midi na neje wa akode
Mansai Media College. Ya ma o de we hia bia wo nkotahudie mu.